Welcome, folks. So, fun fact about me, the previous episode was recorded a day before I completely died from COVID-19. First time I got it, 2023, thought I dodged it. Oh, I didn't. And today is the day after I got over the sickness. So we have a little bridge of COVID between Theater with the Final Fantasy Curtain Call and Final Fantasy Explorers. Welcome back to REFFOID. Welcome to the end of the 3DS. The end of Nintendo having these weird little Final Fantasy spin-offs exclusive to their system. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. It's also the end of really portable gaming for Final Fantasy. Unless you count phones. Final Fantasy Explorers is Square Enix's attempt at hopping aboard the Monster Hunter train. Because around this year was when Monster Hunter was really starting to blow up, as well as that genre. A lot of copycats were coming into play, and this was seen as one of them. Disclaimer right off the bat, I've never touched a Monster Hunter game. I don't really know what they're like, how they play, or anything like that. And I've actually heard that some Monster Hunter veterans, now that the game has been out for 10 years, have said, you know, Final Fantasy Explorers isn't actually that much like Monster Hunter, except for the fact that you fight monsters. And after playing through it myself, I'd conclude that it's actually more like a mission-based MMO. Except it's not massive, so it's like more an MO. And nobody plays it. So it's really just an O. So the game begins by creating your own little character who looks a little bit like someone you might find in a Crystal Chronicles game. And the very first thing you do in town is talk to... Oh, Sid update! Look at this! This game has its very own Holly Jolly Sid. He's in charge of the Explorers Union. He's the guy you report to when you find new things of interest or you're getting ready for a boss or something. It's a pretty small role for a Sid, but we're always happy to see him. Once you get the hang of the game, it's time to choose your job, which is handled a lot similarly to Final Fantasy XIV, where you have your damagers, your healers, and your tanks, and also an additional 4th class booster. I must say, this game made me realize I would love a buffer/debuffer class in 14. Why don't they have jobs like that? I feel like that's a key element missing from the 14 job experience. Like, you'd think Bard would do that, and Bard is like a ranged damager. That's weird. Anyway, since I was a one-man crew, I needed a job that was well balanced. It had to do damage, but be a little tanky. It had to be able to heal or buff myself when possible, so I settled on Monk, and I never looked back. But what's great about this job system is there's nothing preventing you from just switching to another job. In fact, the game is kind of based around tweaking. Every fight it wants you to change up your strategy a little bit. You can switch jobs, and you're not going to lose any progress or anything. Your strength is heavily based on your equipment and abilities. It's not based on a level that you get locked out of when you switch to a new job starting at ground zero or something. No, you can switch as much as you like and you can experiment, and we love that. Sometimes I'd be going up against like a flying enemy, so I'd need range. Like I can punch him if I wait for him to land, but it'll take forever. So I switched to like a black mage, and then I got ranged magic, and I'm killing him so much faster. It's all about editing your build. So once you accept the mission, you head out and it's time to explore. Although, really there's not much exploring to actually do, it's more just about killing things. Each of your equipped abilities has its own cooldown you wait for, similar to some of the Kingdom Hearts spin-offs like Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance. Using abilities consumes your AP bar, as does sprinting, and this bar replenishes over time but can be refilled faster by punching the enemy with basic attacks, or at least the monk punches. I don't know about everyone else. Using abilities will also build your resonance meter, which is a meter shared among friends playing with you. If you had them, which I didn't. The more you build this meter, you will be granted with crystal surges, little randomized bursts of power that will actually enhance you in some way. The problem with these surges in the early game is that you don't know what any of them do. You get a list of 4 and you have to choose one, and you just have the names. So it'll be like strike affinity. I guess that makes my strikes stronger? I don't really know though. And then one of them's just like agony. Do I want agony? I don't know. But the best one bar none, was the 1,000 Needles enhancement, which made every single attack you do exactly 1,000 damage. So for a basic attack, which did like 50 usually, you're now doing 1,000, you forget the ability to just run in and keep punching them. And then if you crit, you do 10,000 damage. It's just insane. No other enhancement came even close to matching the power of 1,000 Needles. The last combat mechanic is called Trance, yet another meter that builds over time. And when this one fills, you hit the button and you go into trance mode. Fully heal your HP and AP and get enhanced surge abilities while you're at it. Throughout the game, you'll unlock Magicite based on characters throughout the Final Fantasy series, and equipping them will make your trance mode transform you into that character. You'll even get special music and a little voice acting, which is a nice touch, and you'll be able to use their signature move like Cloud's Omni Slash or something like that. Do a ton of damage. It was always nice to get that. And that's the combat, which is also 90% of the game. With all these abilities at your disposal, it's up to you to defeat all the Adolins and become the best explorer in the island. Not the world, but just this little island. Woo! Those are the stakes. It's the closest thing we have to a story here. There's no cutscenes, there's no characters. This game is really just, Ifrit's over there, you should go kill him. Okay, guess who's next? Is it Shiva? Yep, Shiva's over there. Guess who's next? Is it Ramu? It's Ramu, go kill Ramu. Okay, that's the whole game. And there's so much running. You just have basically an area, and then there's like a branch off, and then you go through that area, which is like 3 small areas in one that you just run through, and then you make it to the boss. And that's the fastest way to get to a boss every time, and every single mission is pretty much kill the boss. So you're just running and running and running. You could kill some enemies that are also there, and you might get some item drops that'll help you craft things, but otherwise it's a waste of time. So you're just running and running. It's so much. There's a fortune teller in town which gives you a random boost every mission at the cost of some gil. It'll like boost how much experience points you get, how much gil you get, something like that. You could also pay to this lady in play coins. You could even buy some items with play coins. They told me I was crazy for investing in play coin. And there's a monster companion system, just like in 10.2 and 13.2, but this time it's a lot more simple. It's about as simple as I would like it to be, which was good. Killing an enemy has a rare chance of the enemy dropping its essence or something. You pick up the essence, you bring it to the lady at the place, and you can get a monster companion. It's just a little player that follows you around. All the monsters have their own roles, a healer or a tank or something like that, and they just simply level up when you bring them into battle. It's that simple. And what do you do with all of the monsters you get that you don't want to use? You can like boil them down into upgrades for your equipment and stuff. So everything has a use, and you're not just wasting these mechanics because you don't want them. I liked it. It was solid. Better than 13.2's monster hunting thing. It's maybe a hot take, but that's how I felt. And speaking of enhancing your equipment, another important element to this game is ability mutation. You can enhance your moves with various extra effects while in town. It's the final tweak you have in this very tweak-heavy game. You can infuse abilities with elements or add debilitating effects or something like that. My favorite mutation I got was I enhanced my chakra, which is a classic monk move where you heal yourself and boost your attack. I added haste onto that, so whenever I healed, I also became faster, and I could like do a second heal even faster, or just go crazy and start punching more. Like, who doesn't want haste? I get haste in any game, at any opportunity. I can get haste, I get haste. But that was just one of a million different things I can do with chakra or any of my other moves. So much tweaking. It's all tweaking. And it sure wasn't really super relevant for my purposes, but if you're doing like post-game stuff, you're gonna need to tweak. And the last thing I want to say is I think this is the first game I've ever played that actually uses the 3DS C-Stick or Circle Pad Pro and the ZL/ZR buttons, which were used for sprinting if you wanted. I must say, Not very intuitive. I did not really like using that. And, oh, you're not gonna believe this. The camera does the thing that it did in Type 0 HD. If you watch that video, remember how turning the camera, the right stick that changed the camera, it also changed the lock on, so the camera would flip around and focus on different enemies if you so much as move the thing just a little bit? This game does that. They did that crap twice. They did that twice. Mind-blowing. It didn't make me want to throw up this time, I guess, because it's on a small enough screen, but that better not show up again, Square. I'm gonna blow a gasket. Third time? If you do it a third time? You might be wondering why I have a copy of Day 1 edition of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD on PS4. I'll tell you in a couple videos. Okay, so conclusion. You know when you spend like 3 or 4 hours in a game and you think, oh, that's the whole thing. This is gonna be the whole experience, huh? That was me. I spent another 10 hours playing through to the credits, but I didn't think of anything new to say for a review in those 10 hours. Nothing changed. There were no surprises. The gameplay was walk to boss, punch boss till dies. That was it. You don't even get a new boss to fight every time, too. That's what really got me. The repetition. Like, I killed Ifrit 4 times, I think? Cause it's like, we don't have enough content to make a new boss for every level. Fight Ifrit again, fight Shiva again. You go through the whole cycle of them like a couple times. It's just like, ugh. The final level before credits is a 5-star difficulty level, but it goes up to 10. So there's a lot more missions, a lot more repeating. Some new, there are definitely some new bosses, but then there's also just like fight Ifrit, but it's even harder. Like, I can't. Come on, guys. And correct me if I'm wrong, any Monster Hunter fans out there, I said at the top of the show, I have never played the series. But isn't the point kind of like to figure out how to fight each one? Like each monster has its own gimmick. Some kind of clever way you gotta bait it out or capture it or something. Isn't that the idea of Monster Hunter? The solution in these games is just punch them. Just deal the damage. Everything's a damage sponge. Because it's basically an MMO, but on a 3DS, that's it. You just punch them. Outside of tweaking your build, which is something that is only really important for that post-game of 6 to 10 star difficulty, there's no depth to this experience at all. There's no story, there's no memorable characters, there's no life in the main town hub, and worst of all, there's no exploring. How could you call this game that? I don't understand where the name even came from. There's no like puzzle solving, there's no uncovering, there's no getting into new areas. Every area is blocked off by a magic purple wall of you're not allowed to go here yet until you hit the right mission, and then it says like, oh, now you can go here. And then you walk in there and it's the same flat field that you've been in the rest of the game. Is this game probably funner if I had friends to play it with? Yeah, probably, but I think even if I was a kid and I had this game, I would sooner ask my pals if we could maybe change to Triforce Heroes or Federation Force instead of playing Explorers. And need I say more? Well, I gotta say, I think the 3DS might have the least exciting possible library of games in Final Fantasy. We're only missing the Japanese exclusive Pictologica Final Fantasy, which was an online puzzle game that did die and was also never translated, so maybe emulation of that is possible somewhere down the road. I'm not holding my breath though. The real sad thing is that this isn't just the end of the 3DS, it's the end of non-smartphone portable gaming for this series. And not just that, it's the end of Nintendo exclusives. Since the PS1, Square had a pretty distinct relationship with the two of them, Sony and Nintendo. The big new shiny mainline game would come out on the big new shiny PlayStation console. But meanwhile, they would give us smaller, cheaper, sometimes more gimmick-based spin-off games on the Nintendo consoles. Now, they weren't always the highest of quality, but I did certainly enjoy talking about all the weird games nobody wants to talk about anymore. There are all these Nintendo, the Crystal Chronicles and all those, you know? It was fun. But the next console that was already out at the time of this game was the Wii U. And the Wii U was such a failure that Square Enix didn't feel the need to bother with it. Also, the games wouldn't be that much cheaper because the Wii U was finally HD again. So it was just not worth it to put a new game on that console. And the Switch is nice to port all of Square's old games onto, but at this point in gaming history, anything that they could put out on Switch has no reason not to come to the other consoles to make them more money. We've truly experienced the death of the cheap Nintendo exclusive. It's not just Square. And their desire for cheap, low-budget, money-making portable gaming has been fully fulfilled by the iPhone and the Android. There's no need for this anymore. It's sad, but it's true. And so, Final Fantasy Explorers was the last of its kind. And now that I'm done with this, there's one thing left to do. I gotta put it back on the wall.